Welcome into the Weather Wednesday podcast here at New England Storm Center. So, a landspout touched down, I say in air quotes, in Maine back on May 2nd, last Tuesday, during New England's kind of wacky weather week we had last week with the Omega block. So, it touched down. This is despite the fact that landspouts start from the ground and move upwards toward the cloud. So, let me just backtrack here. A landspout is technically a type of tornado, but the way they form are very different from a traditional tornado. A traditional tornado is formed from a supercell thunderstorm, while a landspout forms on the ground from rotation not associated with a supercell, and that rotation works upwards toward the cloud. Landspouts are almost always very weak, registering winds below EF0 strength. The one in Maine saw winds of 55 miles per hour. EF0 starts at 65 miles per hour. Landspouts are typically created when the convergence of surface boundaries meet the updraft of a thunderstorm and create circulation. Again, the circulation is then pulled upwards toward the base of the cloud. Things get kind of complicated in Maine's case. This is because the storm report in Maine stated that a cold core funnel briefly touched the ground, creating a landspout. This is why it was said that the landspout in Maine touched down, even though landspouts are supposed to start on the ground already. So a cold core funnel is created by a temperature contrast between very cold air aloft, which the cold air that was at altitude in New England at the beginning of May was nearly record-breaking for this time of year. So you have the cold air aloft and then milder air at the surface. And it was in the 50s on the ground at the time of the formation of this cold core funnel in Maine. So cold core funnels very, very rarely make it all the way to the ground. But in Maine's case, it did. It was able to. When these funnels make it to the ground, they are considered landspouts since they can't be called, a standard tornado since they are very weak, again, below EF0 strength, and they did not come from a supercell thunderstorm. So what's interesting about this is the fact that cold core funnels drop from the cloud while traditional landspouts rise up from the ground. There's debate about whether or not landspouts can be considered tornadoes. However, the National Weather Service's official definition of a landspout says, quote, a tornado that does not arise from organized storm scale rotation and therefore is not associated with a wall cloud or a mesocyclone. Landspouts typically are observed beneath CBS or towering cumulus clouds, often as no more than a dust whirl, and essentially are the land-based equivalents of waterspouts. So this definition states right off the bat, a tornado. So it is a type of tornado despite having major differences from your traditional tornado. I guess maybe it's not so much a debate as it is so much some confusion. This article that was published after the Maine landspout states right in the title, Landspout touches down in western Maine, not a tornado. Toward the end of that very same article, it states a landspout tornado is a tornado. Another article states that landspouts are not tornadoes as they do not form from supercells. The definition of a tornado from the National Weather Service is, quote, a violently rotating column of air touching the ground, usually attached to the base of a thunderstorm. The NSSL states that a tornado is, quote, a tornado is a narrow, violently rotating column of air that extends from a thunderstorm to the ground. It also does not mention that it has to come from a supercell thunderstorm. This is interesting since Maine's cold core funnel clearly did not come from a supercell, but still dropped from the cloud. NSSL states that a tornado extends from the thunderstorm to the ground. Since the cold core funnel started at the base of a thunderstorm and dropped to the ground, couldn't it technically be called a standard tornado? After all, neither definition states that the storm has to be a supercell. I guess that's the real debate with this phenomenon. In this specific scenario when the landspout comes from a cold core funnel. Anyway, the landspout in Maine caused some minor tree damage and shingle damage. It also tipped over a small trailer. Again, Maine's landspout was estimated to have winds of 55 miles per hour. So that's where I'm going to leave this for now. You won't find coverage like this on your local news. Here at New England Storm Center, we dive deep into New England's weather. That is what we do here. So moving on to an update on the resort roundup. And we are coming right down to it as Jay Peak and Sugarbush both stuck to their scheduled closing weekends this past weekend. This past Sunday was their closing dates. So that leaves one resort standing. I bet you can't guess which one is last. Of course, it is Killington. They will be pushing on for at least a few more weeks, I would say. We are officially on Superstar Watch to see when that Superstar Glacier does melt out. There's a pretty good amount of snow on there still. Again, really the only thing left to determine here with the resort roundup is, will Killington be able to push into June once again, or will they have to call it at some point later this month? But I was right. A few episodes ago, I did make the prediction that Jay Peak would be the second to last to close once again. I wasn't overly confident with my pick, but it did end up working out. Of course, they did tie with Sugarbush, but it's a tie for second to last, so it counts. So I was right on that front. So, with all of that said, that is going to do it for this edition of the Weather Wednesday podcast here at New England Storm Center. So, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Keep it right here. Keep it at newenglandstormcenter.com, and you will hear from me again next Wednesday.